I'm excited to share with you this video looking at some of the best drivers of the past decade for every level of golfer. We are looking at the best tour driver, the most forgiving driver, the cheapest driver, the one that's going to give you the most distance, and then also the best overall performer. For this video, I've teamed up with our amazing channel partners at Golf Bidder. They are the finest purveyors of secondhand golf clubs on the internet. We've done loads of videos with them and I'll link a bit of a playlist here, some of our most popular on the channel. Make sure you head down into the description below and check out the website. They also part exchange golf clubs, so if you are looking to upgrade your bag with the best secondhand gear, we always recommend you go there. So a tour driver, or one that is suited to better players, it has to fulfill certain criteria. It has to look classic behind the ball. It has to be crafted for excellence. And it has to make a good golfer feel like they could one day play on tour, even though that's never going to happen. And for me, the driver that always comes to mind here is the Titleist TS3, the driver that pulled Titleist back from the brink. You see, when I was a wee lad, having a Titleist driver was a mark of excellence. They were the best drivers in the business. You're talking about the K, the J, that classic teardrop design. It could make me weak at the knees. But then the truth is, Titleist got lazy. You know, they're making most of their money through ball sales. Hardware isn't that big of a thing for them. And other manufacturers, they caught up. Simply put, the ball speed wasn't that good, but the TS3 changed that. To look at, it's classic, it's simple, there's not loads going on, and technology-wise, it's got a weight port in the bottom, but again, it's nothing crazy, but it just delivered on speed, and it brought Titleist back into the fold. So many players who loved playing Titleist back in the day, they could once again game this driver and not be missing out when compared to other clubs. And I've done testing as well against newer models, and ball speed wise, it still stacks up. So if you're looking for a classic looking, good performing driver, TS3 might just be for you. One of the advantages of companies bringing out drivers every 12 to 18 months is that something that was 500 quid only a few years ago, you can pick up for dead cheap. And the original Callaway Rogue is one of those clubs. You see, you've got to remember that a lot of club manufacturers have pushed up against the legal limits of drivers quite some time ago. And that means that any improvements to performance really over the last decade have been incremental at best. And when you have a look at this Rogue compared to the new Rogue, it's got a lot of graphite in it. It looks great. This was a combination of Callaway and Boeing, all about aerodynamics. It's got the jailbreak technology in it. And it is significantly cheaper than the current Rogue. And behind the ball, I think it looks great. But I know what you're all thinking, and I know what you'll all be asking. How does it actually compare numbers-wise to the new Rogue? That's an absolute monster, that one, by the way. There's only one way to find out. Let's go back to the studio, get on the quad, and see. Now, I don't want to say that Callaway have basically taken the same design and replicated it, but there are some remarkable similarities between these two golf clubs. I'm going to be using the 70 gram X Flex. I've set them at 9 degrees. I'm going to try and swing around 110 miles an hour. So we're not going to be seeing explosive distance, but I just want to be seeing if there is similarity between these two clubs. So Rogue ST Max, 9 degrees, same shaft. Interesting results from the original Rogue there. Very, very, very interesting. Wow, that is definitely more offset. That is definitely more closed by quite a lot. That's very noticeable. Ball speed was quicker with the Rogue OG 161 to 159.5, so literally exactly the same. Carry distances was the main difference. So with the OG Rogue, we had 282 versus 274 with the new Rogue. But if you have a look at the total distances, 304 versus 298. Now, one of the reasons we were seeing this was I had a lot lower spin with the new Rogue, It was dropping out of the air a little bit quicker, but it had less backspin, so it was rolling on more. Also, the offset is so much bigger when compared to the old Rogue. So I was hitting the ball a lot further left. So swing speeds were pretty much identical, ball speeds were pretty much identical. They're like identical drivers. I don't know what else to add. They are like the same club. Now this has featured in a past driver video, and it is still, in my opinion, the most forgiving driver in golf, the Callaway Fusion. So the Big Bertha Fusion, when it was released, was an absolute flop because it did one thing and one thing only, and that was offer a massive amount of forgiveness. I honestly don't think I have missed a fairway ever using this driver. The way they made this driver so forgiving was quite simple. They elongated the club head until it was almost a triangle shape. They pushed the weight all the way back in the club head, increased MOI to levels never seen before. Not sure if that's true, but pretty much. Which meant even on off-center hits, it was just amazing, absolutely amazing. But as mentioned, it flopped, belly flopped into the market of golf drivers because it wasn't the longest out there. And people just weren't accepting the fact that they needed more forgiveness. So I will not bang on about this driver anymore. Yes, it's a weird shape. It does look a little bit funky behind the ball. And it is still quite expensive considering how old it is. But it is so forgiving, it is so good. If you do get the chance to get your hands on one, and you are after hitting more fairways and more forgiveness, the Big Bertha Fusion is a brilliant way to go. TaylorMade for me are the leaders in distance if you strike the ball consistently. And the SLDR from TaylorMade, released in 2014, for me is a classic example. And we will get into the studio and have a look at the data, but I think the SLDR is still going to be one of the longest drivers that you can buy. And TaylorMade, when they brought this club out, they were one of the first manufacturers to start shoving center of gravity and weight further forward in the club head. And they introduced this sliding weight for draw and fade bias, but it was to push the weight further forward. Now this reduced spin. It also reduced forgiveness, which we'll get into. But if you up the loft, you can launch it high, spin it low, and bomb it down the fairway. So when you strike this driver well, it is absolutely unreal. It just absolutely flies, but if you catch it slightly heely or slightly toey, it's horrible, like really horrible. But what's it like compared to the new carbon face Stealth, the next evolution in driver technology? Let's go have a look. So straight into the testing. Like I mentioned, this will be against the numbers that I had from the Stealth Plus. So old titanium material of the past against the carbon wood age. What is going to be longest? I've got a funny feeling about the SLDR. I've not hit one and I've not had the data for a while. This is a beast. It's a monster. I'm really looking forward to hitting this again. It just doesn't spin. It just doesn't spin. 1,199 spin. But the whole point of this driver, and I remember going to the launch of it, was the fact that you had to loft up. Because it was such a low spinning driver, you had to loft up. That was the whole campaign marketing slogan. I think I might have to, it's dropping out of the sky. So this is one of the reasons why I love doing old club comparisons to new clubs, because the SLDR, it performed better than the Stealth Plus. It is as simple as that. There is a big fat whopping however. So to try and get the averages right between the SLDR and the Stealth Plus, I took out some of the off-center strikes. So this comes with a warning. If you do not strike the ball well, do not get an SLDR. It is so low spinning, it's just gonna drop completely out the air. If you strike the driver consistently though, you could bag yourself an absolute bargain, because this is the data. So the comparison, I managed to get the SLDR to 121.3, where the Stealth Plus was 121.1. Literally identical. And let's reel off some of these top line numbers. Ball speed, 171 with the SLDR. Carry distance, 308. Total distance, 331 yards. The backspin on center strikes was absolutely perfect, so up around 2,000. If you get your backspin around 2,000 revs per minute, it's gonna launch, it's gonna carry, but it's also gonna have a bit of spin to keep it in the air. As soon as the spin goes lower, that's when it just drops out. Oddly enough, the SLDR was actually quite accurate as well. I hit a few out to the right near the end when I was getting a bit tired. But apart from that, it was fantastic. In all my years of coaching, I very rarely came across so many golfers with the same driver when it was released. And that was the Cobra King F9. One of the reasons I think this is the best overall driver, first of all, slightly cheaper. And when it came out, it was slightly cheaper as well. So it performed as good as all the competition, but you could pick it up for about 100 quid less. So they added this amazing pop of color. These two weights on the back are interchangeable. So if you wanted lower spin, you could move the heavier weight to the front. It has this CNC milled face, which they are still carrying on with. Looking down on the ball, you've got this carbon on the back and you've got these nubbins to help aerodynamics. And overall, it was just a fantastic driver when it was released. But how does it actually compare to the current Cobra drivers? So let's get the best data for my choice as the best overall driver, the Cobra F9 or the King F9. But I'm also going to be putting it up against the LTDX, so the new driver from Cobra. And let's see if the intervening years has led to an improvement in performance. So I've set both the Cobras to 9 degrees. Shaft-wise, I have got an X-Stiff Motor X. And I thought for this test, why not come to the 18th at St Andrews? Oh my God. Hey, it doesn't matter what the best overall driver is. When you hit it that far out the heel, it ain't gonna win them all. So we have switched. This is a 10.5 degree head. I've cranked it down to 9 as well. Let's see the differences. Is the new driver better than my overall choice? What a beauty to finish that is. Oh, so for the first time in actually doing one of these comparisons, the new club actually came out a little bit better. We're not talking about astronomical distances. Don't suddenly run off to the shop just yet, but there was a little difference. The ball speeds were pretty much identical. So 155.9 for the King F9 and 156.2 for the LTDX. So really nothing to split them there. The main difference, and I think probably the contributing factor to the extra yardage, was spin. So the LTDX was spinning 400 revs less than the King F9. So they were both carrying around 270, so the F9 was 270, the LTX was 271, and the difference total was 290 yards for the King F9 and 296 for the LTDX. So really, spin was probably the only difference. Between the two, I would say probably the F9 felt a little bit better. It felt a bit more solid, a little bit more powerful when you hit. I would say the LTDX felt a little bit easier though, a little bit lighter, a little bit more workable. So guys, get down into those comments, let us know your thoughts on what you think the best driver is over the last 10 years for different types of golfers. A huge thank you to Golf Bidder for partnering up with the channel once more. They've been so supportive these last 6 years and we absolutely love working with them. So if you haven't checked them out already, make sure you do so here on social handles and down in the description below. Wallop the like button on this video, subscribe if you haven't already. I'll see you down here next time.